Guys, I've got a guest here today. I've got Stephen Norman over from Australia, not too far away this time. And Stephen is a B2B sales consultant. He's an author, he's a keynote speaker, and he's a bit of an expert on B2B sales. So, Stephen, good to have you here today. Thanks for joining.
Great to be with you, Alex. Looking forward to the chat.
So look, we spoke just before Christmas. Actually, you had me on your show, and we had a
Yep,
really good chat. And I
that's
thought we
awesome.
could we could do something a bit similar today. But before we dive into anything, why don't you just give us a little bit of background, maybe about how you came to be doing what you're doing,
Yep.
and some of the work you've been doing over the last few years.
Absolutely. I guess I had a very long, very corporate career in the tech industry. I was the first salesperson for Dell in Australia.
Right.
Okay, so that goes back to like 1993. And I had 13 years there in a lot of different sales and leadership sort of roles,
Yeah.
including most of that time I worked overseas. I lived in Korea, I lived in Singapore, I set up Dell's China business. I was the president for Dell's business in Korea. I ran large, complex sales teams. My sales teams were, from 100 to 300 people.
Wow.
With directors and managers and lots of different specialists and people managing bids and pricing and all. A lot of complexity in those sort of sales operations. And then I was 9 years in Hong Kong, managing the Targus business across Asia Pacific. So, had a couple of hundred people working for me across like 15 countries. Very complex business. We have distribution. We have like retail. We had large corporate accounts. We had OEM business across a lot of countries with a lot of different products, and pretty exciting time doing that. So I've been a sales leader, a practicing sales leader for a long time, and I came back to Australia 3 years ago from Hong Kong, and was thinking about what I could do, but trying to get off the corporate treadmill, because in those sort of senior high pressure jobs, your time's not your own. And
Sure.
and I was just traveling every week and, didn't see my kids much. And, I'd done enough of that, more than 25 years of that sort of treadmill, and thought, okay, what can I do back here? And I really saw, a challenge for sales leaders. So much has changed in the last 10 to 15 years. And there's so much misinformation. And it's very hard when you're a practicing sales leader to work out what's right, what to do, who to listen to, and whatever. So I started, thinking about that, and put together, I wrote a book, Future-Proof Sales Strategy, which I put a year into and just really distilled my thoughts. And I also did a lot of research, spoke to over 100 sales leaders from around the world and sales thought leaders to sort of put that together, to really help sales leaders work out what's the best way to go.
Wow.
So that's a sort of a quick snapshot.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I suppose, were you sort of motivated? You came back to Australia and you saw things maybe being done not as well as you'd been seeing them over in Hong Kong, and from your previous experience. Is that kind of part of your motivation for writing the book? And
Oh, I wouldn't say it's worse here than elsewhere.
okay.
Every situation's different. And that's part of the challenge, isn't it? Like, we can't really cookie cutter solutions, but there are some principles that work everywhere. So we can't run the same sales process in Asia as we would here, right? It's just completely different structure in the way people think and the way they interact and everything. So we need to be adaptable, but there are some fundamental principles that apply. But I just think generally the sales profession is generally unprofessional in some ways, right? There's a great opportunity for companies to stand out and build a competitive differentiation or a strategic advantage with a sales capability, and for salespeople and sales leaders to really fireproof their own careers by investing and developing themselves as professionals, because most of the profession is not professional. So if you can apply yourself, I think you can do really well. And I really see, almost every company is in a situation where they're facing very extreme competition these days. It's very hard to differentiate with products. It's very hard to have what used to be called a sustainable competitive advantage. So I really can see a trend that our sales capability or our marketing capability in B2B, it's going to be our sales capability is going to be the differentiator. That's going to be the strategic weapon for our companies to be successful. Customers can solve their problems in 100 different ways. They could use our solution. We might have a great solution, but they can solve their problem. They may not even bother solving their problem. All right. It's going to be our sales capability that makes that difference. And as we talk, we can give examples of that in action.
That's awesome. And you've said a couple of really interesting things there, that sales isn't professional. The state of selling isn't professional.
Yeah.
And I think that's,
yes,
you're not the first person to bring that up. Tony
right.
Hughes brought that up when we spoke, and a
Okay.
number of other people I've been speaking to brought that up. And I couldn't agree more. Why do you think that is? Before we're gonna unpack a few things today, but
Sure.
just that's a really interesting point. Why do you think it's not professional?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? There's such a low barrier to entry to enter the sales profession, and the rewards can be huge, right? So it's a pretty interesting situation, and there's just no standard. Like accountants have got a standard, engineers have got a standard. You can't do an engineering job without 4 or 5 years training and doing different projects and whatever. And in medicine, just so many fields, finance, you need a qualification and there's some sort of standard, but sales is something that's really been neglected. And it's not something I can fix or I spend too much time worrying about. I just see that opportunity. I just see this massive hole, and I'm really trying to get the message to CEOs and business leaders, country managers, and so forth that here's a great opportunity. If you can build a professional sales structure and sales team, it can be a great weapon and a differentiator, because not many of your competitors will have that.
Couldn't agree more. So we're going to talk a little bit about discovery today, because I asked you what's one of the sort of most crucial elements to the B2B sales process, and you mentioned discovery, and so firstly, maybe before we unpack it, what is discovery for those who maybe don't even know what we're talking about?
Discovery is a step in the sales process. Okay. So, and I see it as a very discrete step, and we should have a process and a structure for doing discovery. It's something we do early in the sale. It's once we've done some basic qualification and it looks like there's a real opportunity. So this customer fits in our ideal customer profile, that they look like we can help them. They look like other customers we've been successful with, for example. That would be qualification. So that your basic upfront qualification. And then we should go into discovery, right? Where we're really understanding the customer's problems and the potential solutions. So it's a step we should do before we get into any sort of proposal or demonstration. So that's a quick definition.
Okay. So you differentiate the difference between qualification and discovery. So you treat them separately?
Very much. Very much. Qualification is something we do all through the sales process.
Right. Yeah.
We qualify at the beginning and at the end of every meeting. During meetings, we're qualifying. Qualifying is that's a massive topic. I think it's a really massive topic. And we talk about qualifying. We can talk about, what's someone's budget process? How is that going to work? What's their decision-making process? Who are the people involved? What are their priorities? What are their thoughts? That's all qualification, right? And we're going to be doing that all the way through the process, right? And that's a really big science in itself. Discovery is a step we do in the sale. Yeah. And we should be able to do the discovery, put a line under it, and move on.
Right. Okay, interesting. So maybe if you've got an example of a company you've worked with
Mm.
who weren't doing discovery or weren't doing it well, and then how you helped them figure out the right discovery process that's helped them going forward.
Yeah. I was engaged by a big tech multinational
Yeah.
over here, and it was early in my engagement. We're doing a big project to retool that sales team and build out their sales processes. And they came to me early in that process and said, "Hey, we've just lost this $6 million deal, and we'd like you to sit in on the win-loss review, or we'd like you to conduct the win-loss review with the team." Okay, so I went into the meeting. We had the account executive, we had the inside salesperson, we had the systems engineer, technical sales rep, technical architect, sales manager, sales director, someone from product there, 7, 8 people, right? Like, it's a lot of expense goes into these deals.
Yeah.
And the story was, they had gone into this customer. The customer had told them they were unhappy with their current supplier and they wanted to work with my client. And, if they could give them a good proposal, then they would, probably switch over, right? And it's worth about $6 million a year. And so my client bent over backwards for this customer, did everything they asked. Customer asked for technical specifications, they gave it to them. Customer asked for a demo, they gave it. They asked for proof of concept. They asked for analysis of their users and recommendations on solutions and everything, right? And they just responded to everything the customer asked.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm
in
seeing a
the
problem.
end, the customer went quiet for about 2 months and then told them they'd lost.
Right.
And something they weren't doing, for a start, they're not qualifying that well
No.
through the process, but they did not do a proper discovery. And since then, and part of my work with them is they do not give a proposal, they do not give pricing, they do not give specs, they don't do a demo without doing discovery first. And really make sure there's a strong case here, that they understand the landscape and the customer's committed, to going on a journey with them before we just go like a one-way street.
Sure.
Yeah. So the large complex deals shouldn't be a one-way street. And, as soon as, like some salespeople, like even like in Challenger, if you remember the Challenger sale and those archetypes they had, there was one who was like very good at responding to customers, a great customer service type of person, right? And they're absolutely huge failures in sales, compared to others who are going to like more give and take with the customer and are prepared to stand up for themselves.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be a collaborative process. I think any sale really is a collaborative process, whether it's big or small, but more so when we're talking about a big enterprise deal like you've just described.
Yeah.
There's no way you can do that without some level of collaboration. So
Well,
okay.
there's a lot of sales teams and salespeople go their careers with that model,
Yeah.
right? And they win occasionally, and they think, "Oh, I won, and I did this process, which was a
Correct.
really poor process." But they still win 1 in 5 or 1 in 10.
Yeah, but they should be winning, probably double that, but their conversion
Exactly.
rate
So winning
sucks.
6 or 7 out of 10. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So carry on with this example then, Stephen. What did you change that discovery process to? What does I guess the ideal discovery look like now?
Yeah, like a good discovery. And, this process can apply to a small deal
Hmm.
as it can to this sort of very large type of deal, right?
Mm.
And what we want to do is just get the focus off us, get the focus off our product and our capabilities, right? And our product teams and marketing teams are training us every week and loading us up with material about ourselves and what we should be telling customers about ourselves, right? And we often, as soon as a customer gives us an opening, we're straight in. And we really have to put that aside and switch the conversation back to the customer.
Yeah.
Okay. So first, we have to talk to the customer about that, because the customer will say, I'm really interested in your product, blah, blah. I've got these needs. Can I have a demo? Or can you come in and present to us on your current roadmap or your current product range?
Yeah.
We have to put a stop sign up at that point. So the first thing is to say, Mr. Customer, our experience shows we're able to do a much better job if we can understand your needs better first. And we have a formal discovery process that I think you'll get a lot of value out of. Can we have a discovery meeting first? And you can get your key people there. I'll bring my key people. And in a large deal, that discovery might happen over several meetings.
Yeah.
They could be like, half-day meetings with whiteboards and, really understanding technical requirements. And you go have a technical discovery meeting and whatever, even like a process discovery meeting, whatever. You can go very deep, right, into understanding the customer's side. With a transactional sale, you can do the discovery with 5 to 10 questions on the phone.
Yeah.
All right. And there's two parts to it. There's two things we have to cover. And most salespeople think they're doing a great discovery if they just do the second part. Okay. But the first part's most important. First part is where we understand their status quo. We really want to go deep down the hole of their status quo and the issues around the status quo.
Right. So it's where are you at today?
Yep.
What's working, but then also what's not working.
What's not working? What is it costing you?
Yeah.
To run the way you are today. Yeah. Why are you talking to us?
So
there must be a reason.
right? It's quantifying it. Put a number on it, basically.
As much as possible, if you can. Yeah. It could be putting a number on it. It could be a lot of other implications. Could be like staff turnover issues or customer satisfaction issues, or they got problems with some of their metrics in the warehouse. And ultimately it comes down to cost, right? But you're going to get a lot of these, issues out.
Okay.
Right. So we really need to do that first. And the second part is sort of the easier part and something salespeople are sort of good at. That's like what the future will look like.
Right.
And a lot of us jump straight to that. We're good at that. Right. But there's lots and lots of deals I've been involved with where I've done that, or I've seen my clients do that. They just paint this great picture of what they can do and their capabilities and everything. And then the customer says, oh, thanks for all of that work, but we're going to stay with the status quo. We can live with it. Because you haven't done that dirty work to really quantify what their issues are and their problems.
Yeah.
And this also helps you see, do you have a real opportunity or not? Don't be afraid that 3 times out of 10, 6 times out of 10, depends on your business. You're going to find there's not enough of a problem to justify this change.
Because, and I think it's a really important point you've made there. And I'll use round numbers just to make it easy, like if we find a business, if we start this discovery process and we understand that a business is, maybe they're spending $1 million a year more than they need to be.
Yeah.
And our solution costs $100,000 a year. It's quite a compelling proposition at this point. But if we find that their problem's only costing them $200,000 a year and our solution is $100,000 a year, maybe it's not enough of a motivation for them to make a change.
Exactly. And that's what you're going to uncover. Is you're making a really good point, Alex, because there's a tax when you change.
For sure.
right? And there's a lot of implications when you change. Like there's going to be people resisting. You maybe have to change your processes. You may have to shut down for a few days, or people work on the weekend. Whatever. There's going to these transitions are not easy.
Yeah, even just someone being redirected from a project to this one.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to cost resources. They've got other priorities. So yeah, if it's $100,000 opportunity versus $900,000 opportunity, it's going to get different prioritization. And we've got to get in our heads, we're not competing just with our own regular competitors. We're competing against other projects in that business. And that's how the CFOs and CEOs in those businesses are looking at these projects. Oh, there's a project, IT want to do a project that's going to save 100K, right? But marketing have got this project that's going to generate $5 million in revenue. Where am I going to put my resources? I've only got so much resource to hand out, or so much investment, so much budget, whatever.
This is something that I'm often telling and advising companies on, actually, is there are different priorities in the business, and also those priorities can shift at any time. So, you might, especially if you're selling, maybe not so much bigger companies tend to have more of a structure around their priorities, but especially if you're selling to sort of mid-market or smaller, priorities can change very quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
So you need to stay on top of that. If you're trying to sell and it's a fairly complex sale, you need to stay on top of that, because you don't want to get caught out halfway through a deal and then find out actually your project that you're trying to sell in has now suddenly been deprioritized because something else, some other shiny thing has come along. So you need to stay on top of these things as well.
Yeah. So that's why we're really early on. See, we've all had those calls, right? We think we've got a deal. We've got a deal in the pipeline. Customers been telling us for months, this is going to close in January. And we get to January and they say, oh, sorry, it's been delayed. We haven't got the resources for it, whatever, right? Now, if you've done a really good discovery early on and you found out this is costing them $50,000 a week, it's causing staff turnover, it's causing them losses in the warehouse and whatever, right? You've got all those things very quantified. You can come back pretty strongly. Hey, but when we spoke and we've been talking about this is going to save you X, it's going to solve this problem, it's going to solve that, right? You've got a chance to save the deal or fight for the deal. And of course, we should be getting in front of the right people and making sure everyone's aligned around those things. But it's when we don't do that, when we don't have that groundwork done, and we're just sort of clutching at dreams. Yeah. But don't you remember we talked about how shiny the new warehouse is going to be, and how you're going to just one button and you'll see a report on where the stock is around the country. And that's all like the future sort of, it's a bit intangible. Right. And the way the brain works, the brain is motivated much more by pain avoidance than getting gains.
Yeah.
It's more than 2x the power, right? So that's the sort of the psychological or the neurological reasons why we focus on the status quo, the pain of that, the cost of that, and really have everyone will be very motivated by that, rather than a possible gain maybe sometime in the future. Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons why we want to do a proper discovery here. And your deals will accelerate. If you do this, you take a little time in the beginning, your pipeline will accelerate and it will be much more reliable, because these are the biggest issues that sales leaders and salespeople have got, is that pipeline rolling over quarter to quarter.
Yeah, for sure. And long sales cycles, I think particularly in the last 12 months has been a big issue for a lot of companies. There's been deals blowing out, taking longer than they should, and conversion rates going down.
Yeah, like in a lot of industries, though, things have potentially gotten faster.
True. There has been
going to come out in the discovery. So let's not accept things at the surface level.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
You do the discovery and find out, like, okay, some industries like I've got a client like in the alcohol business, right? Been booming for the last 9 months, right? Like their issue is hiring enough people, training them, getting enough, they're running out of like storage space. They need to be, tracking their inventory and turning things over faster. They've got those sorts of growth problems, right? Compared to say, let's say we're talking to someone in the travel business, they may have a compelling need for our solution because their business is in a lot of trouble and they're hemorrhaging. And if we've got something that's going to save them money, but let's do the discovery around that. How do we get you out of your current contract with it that's costing you $100,000 a month and transition you to blah blah, to something else? So really, horses for courses there.
I'm a big believer in having a sales playbook for an organization. And, and I think we may have touched on this when you had me on your show around, I think of sales operations as something a machine that you can just plug people into. They're going to be successful. As long as they've got a brain, they'll be successful.
Sure.
Do you think that you can have a playbook for discovery?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've built discovery playbooks and qualification playbooks for my clients, and it's very specific, right? So it depends if it's a low value to high value.
For sure.
Is it a service? Is it a product? Right. So that's where the discovery questions and discovery checklist is going to be quite specific. Yeah. All right. So it's good. First off, okay, let's teach our teams about doing discovery, the reasons for doing it, the brain science, how it improves close rate, teach them that process. But then the next level is the specific playbooks by service or product. Yeah. And it comes across exceptionally well with customers. Customers are surprised. Yeah. So just think about, like I've got a client in the cybersecurity industry selling like SaaS solution for cyber, and everyone in that business is very geared towards quick qualification, straight to demo. And just think about that. You're a customer, you call in 3 cyber vendors. First one, there's a quick qualification, then books a demo for you. Second one, quick qualification, books a demo. Third one comes in, qualification, and says, hey, we can serve you much better if we do a discovery and understand more about your business first and how you're currently running a cyber environment. And then you get that, depends on the size. Let's say that could be a 30-minute call with the salesperson and a technical specialist. And you're going to uncover how they're currently doing their cyber, what the issues are with that, how are they managing work from home workers now, how they're managing security, how they're managing those devices at home, and whatever their current issue is, and digging into that. Okay, and what's that costing you? What's the implication? Okay, we do that 30 minutes, then we do a demo. Who's going to be in the box seat?
I agree with you.
The customer can solve the problem with any one of those vendors. They're all good. The cyber product works, roughly the same price. But who's going to get some trust with the customer, some credibility with the customer, and having huge success, just inserting that. And this is real bugbear of mine, that the SaaS industry, and it's very US driven, they go straight to demo. Yeah. All the time. And it becomes their playbook. They say, yeah, I've got a playbook. It's it's
a demo playbook.
Call straight to demo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I really hate it. And it's so ingrained. And a lot of my clients are tech industry, they're the Australian subsidiaries of the US company, and they're just given that playbook. And it isn't effective. It becomes a bit of a numbers game. Yep. And they have very poor conversion. So they drive more and more outbound and more numbers to get more demos that don't convert very well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of doing putting the discovery in and getting like a 6 out of 10 close
Yeah.
rate, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I fully agree with you, and it's amazing because I've worked with companies where we've done this and we brought in discovery and qualification steps prior to demo,
yep.
and two things happened, and it was quite dramatic actually. One example in particular, they're selling a uh, mental health well-being software solution to large companies, and we built a playbook for discovery and qualification prior
Mm,
to demo. Sales cycles went from nearly a year to about 4 months,
okay. Yep.
and conversion went up substantially, like
Mm.
two and a half, three times higher conversion rate,
No,
just
it's
from
really,
taking the time.
that's awesome.
And it doesn't
That's
take
awesome.
that long. You're right. It can be 30 minutes. Literally can be a 30-minute
Oh
conversation.
yeah. It can be a 5-minute conversation,
Yeah.
right? So another client of mine, they sell a service that's a $5,000 to $10,000 one-off service.
Yep.
It's like a tech service,
Mm.
and they get a lot of inbound on that, and they do some outbound as well. And it's actually like a sort of thin end of the wedge for much bigger complex solutions, but they sell this
Sure.
sort of commoditized service. And we do pretty much a 5 to 7 minute discovery
Really? Wow.
on that service, right? You know, we want to do everything in one call.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. So I don't want to give a proposal without doing discovery, but it doesn't have to be a separate call. So yeah, the customer's interested. They've made an inquiry for a reason.
Mm.
Yeah, can I take 5 minutes and just ask you a few questions about your environment?
Yeah.
How are you currently protecting people? How much are you paying? Who are you using? You know, what are the issues with it? Why are we talking? And it's amazing the gold. And then when you give them the proposal back, it's like, hey, we've listened to you. These look like your top 3 issues.
Mm.
And the solution doesn't really change. It's a sort of boxed solution, but this will address those 3 issues, right?
Yeah.
And we move forward, and it works exceptionally well.
Because just that little bit of extra personalization in the
Yes.
proposal
And
actually shows you've heard them.
yeah, and previously they were sending out sort of a standard proposal to everybody.
Right.
Right. And it sort of covered the waterfront. It was like a
Mm.
standard, like 30 pages that covered every possible option and scenario.
Right.
Now it's like a 2-pager.
Yeah.
All right. Depending on what the discovery comes up with, we just include the necessary, nothing additional. If they want to explore more, go on our website and check it out. But I don't want to distract the customer. I just want to focus on their business, their issues, and help them. Let's help the customer. Like it's too confusing.
Mm. No, fantastic. And yeah, I think we're both preaching to the converted on this one. I think we both absolutely agree that discovery is probably one of discovery and qualification are probably the two worst parts of sales process I see usually.
Yeah, it's so underserved. It's so there's like, and that's why I'm on a crusade with discovery, and I just see just a massive focus like on LinkedIn and with HubSpot and everybody talking about prospecting.
Yes.
Right. It's like 25 ways to write an email, 10 ways to make a call, and blah, and recording calls and all this. It's good stuff, right? I like it, and we should have a prospecting engine. And then I see sales leaders and sales managers with a maniacal focus on closing deals, looking at the pipeline. So we've done this prospecting. A few deals have gone into the pipeline. Now we jump over everything in the middle and we pressure the reps. When are you going to close?
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you going to close this deal? What are we going to close this week, this month? And there's this whole massive piece of very professional sales work that needs to happen in the middle, and it's not getting the attention. And like you've pointed out, and in my examples, they're huge levers to our sales productivity.
Huge.
It makes sales more fun, right? You can do far less prospecting, you can have far less deals and sell more.
Yeah.
Right?
And you can talk a lot less too. You can
Oh
talk
yeah.
a lot less. You actually listen. You actually end up listening more, and you actually learn a little bit more about your customer,
Oh, sure.
which seems obvious, but I think you're right. There is this sort of maniacal might be the most perfect word I've heard used to describe this focus on closing, 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 closing.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's this massive gap, which is actually what do you do with your lead when you first get them, and how do you look after them in the best possible way that will
Yeah.
ultimately help you close it later. And that's that discovery process. And also the other thing is, if your outbound's really strong and you've got this great outbound engine and great inbound engine, and you do your discovery and qualification
Oh,
really well, you're laughing.
you're on the way to success.
That's right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then closing becomes easy. We're not really talking about closing. Closing is just it's just dropping off the conveyor belt, right? And what I teach my sales teams is sort of related to this, but discovery is part of it. Is I want to be building commitment through the sale. I'm going to get some commitment in the initial qualifying. Through discovery, I'm going to be building some commitment. Then I'm going to be qualifying more. When I give a proposal, when I give pricing, I'm going to be building more and more commitment. I've got this two-way street going on all through that sales process. So the close becomes very natural.
Yeah.
We're not having to use some high pressure tactic or a discount that ends at the end of the month or something.
Yeah.
We've already built the business case. It's solid. We've got everything, all the ducks lined up, and we can have a much more relaxing career.
Yeah, and I think I think one of the final benefits to it, on just adding to what you just said, is sales leaders can now trust forecasts a little bit more,
Oh yeah.
because they can actually have some trust that when their reps say it's going to be closed on the 31st of January or whatever other date they've said it's going to be closed, you actually have some, you actually can look at that and say, yeah, that's probably about 95% correct.
And you have a common language then, like going back to what you're saying about the playbook. If you have a proper playbook that has proper discovery process, qualification processes and questions, we've got a language. Okay, like we've checked off the budget situation, the legal situation, all these, the business case is done. We've got support from key people. Whatever that sort of checklist is, we know if something's at stage 3 or stage 4 of the pipeline, exactly what that means.
Yeah.
And it's left to like too many sales teams just depend on the individual's capabilities to work out how to get things through the pipe, and then it becomes very hard to manage.
Exactly. Well, look, Stephen, I've really enjoyed this. I think we're both very, very aligned on our thinking around discovery and qualification and how important it is.
Sure.
Is there any kind of final thoughts or final tips, tricks, things that companies should be doing in relation to this, or maybe aligned to what we've spoken about today?
Yeah, look, I think having a common process within your team, within your company for doing this is really critical. All right. So yes, first off, if you can, let's teach the principles of discovery, and that's a huge step. But really think about how you're going to do that discovery. And it's going to be different for each service that you have. Like we said, there's that 5-minute simple one for a commodity, up to like a multi-day, multi-week type of discovery we want to do on large deals before we start giving a proposal. So you've got to invest a little bit of time, and don't just leave it to the individual reps to sort of find their own way through that. I think there's just so much benefit in, let's pool all that great information, and I'm not talking about imposing a process on the sales team. I want to have an interactive planning and development process we go through where we get everyone's input because they've got the experience from the field. And, we put that in, everyone's got their fingerprints on that, and that becomes our process. And we can, we've got something to talk about. We've got something we can improve. We've got something we can measure. And like I say, it's so impressive with the customer. Like I was thinking about selling my house a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And I had like 3 real estate agents come through, and the first 2 came through and they sort of did the standard thing. They walked around the house, they're sort of chatting and sort of building rapport with me. Oh yeah, which football team you like, and you play golf and whatever. And third one come in, a little bit cool. But we sat down and he said, hey, yeah, before we look around the house and everything, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? And he had a standard discovery checklist.
Okay.
And it was so impressive. And I really felt I was in the hands of a professional.
Yeah.
And he said, why are you selling? What are your plans after you sell? He wants to know if there's something changing in the family or with my job, we're moving, why you're moving. And, he's getting at all of those things first. And it can just be so, make such a positive impression on the customer to do this.
Absolutely. Well, look, Stephen, I've enjoyed this. It's been good to chat to you again, and good to chat around this topic that we're both, I think, passionate, maybe,
yes,
but quite passionate about, actually.
It's my mission, discovery for sure.
It's a great mission. I support you in that. Stephen, for those who are going to watch this, where can they find you?
Yeah.
Is there anything else, final things you'd like to share?
Yeah, so my company's Growth Acumen. So I'm at growthacumen.com.au, and I'm also on LinkedIn. So check me out there. I also have a podcast that comes out every week, the Future Proof Selling Podcast, and that's on iTunes and Stitcher and Google podcasts and everything, where I talk to sales leaders from around the world on different topics. Like I've spoken to you, that will be coming out soon as well. And so please connect with me, and always love talking to sales leaders and sales managers about what their challenges are and how they're looking to address them. And if I can help, great. If not, it's always good to have a chat and share some ideas.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Stephen.
Thank you.